Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We are going to continue on with this week's theme of unusual genre combos. Today looking at the Gorillaz. Wait, it's just Gorillaz? Have I been calling them the Gorillaz my whole life? Anyways, we're going to be looking at Gorillaz, the mountain, the moon cave, and the sad god. The only thing I know about this is that the person who requested it mentioned that this album is a fresh masterpiece, heavily inspired and infusing traditional Indian music with their usual styles. So, let's dive into it. We do have a music video here, just shy of 9 minutes in length. Let's dive in, see what Gorillaz is bringing to the table today. I love that, the drum, I wish I could remember the name of it. The pitch on it is changed by hand. Interesting fusion here. Very adventurous though. I'm digging the general lighthearted vibes of the music, while still having exploratory themes to it. All of the acoustic instrumentation is a really nice touch. Little throwback to some romantic era classical. So other than kind of having some Baroque pop influences, like with the harp that was in Last Repetition, I'm not really hearing much of the intro in this part.
You will never recognize me.
getting a small hint of disco in here too, which is unusual. We kind of had a quasi-disco revival like 5, 6, 7 years ago in pop. Feels a bit late on it.
Grinning beginnings. One more time from the top.
Yo, I go like a butterfly, give me any. I'ma let it slide, bet you I'ma like I'm in the sky. Look at how I wanna let the ideas just up high like a new hot. Good to be the GOAT, only way I is to treat it like it's gossiping. Yeah, watch this, yo, I can like no other guy, give me any. I'ma let it ride, bet you I'ma like I've been a vibe. I'ma just, yeah, check it. Yo, I can tell a sky pick for profit. When I flow top, pick the topic. Is it hip hop? Is it gothic? Can it fit into the corner pocket? Is it hovering above the surface? Is the pain where the megahertz is? Where the mass is? Where the church is? Are the last days where the earth is? It's a movie, listen to me. They have given the permission to me to move like Mr. Halloumi. If I leave here, don't pursue me. Let me flow topic to topic. From the posh tip to the mosh pit to the ghost watch and the folks clock and the most popular optics. Spread it all around from the small town to the empire, spin fall down. From the energy to bring the wall down. Or the mothership gon' call down like Orson. The heat gon' be scorching. The beat gon' need voices. The sound downright awesome. But downtown like different than the sounds y'all like. Let me break it down for 'em like, hold up.
Yeah, cool hemiola in there. So the rapped part and a lot of the drum work was in 6, but there was a synth that was laying down a 4 in the same time.
I gave you white sails, you wept for night. I gave you garlands, you closed your eyes. In paradise.
Very interesting finale.
In paradise.
All right. I'm a little perplexed by this. It feels like it's in multiple movements. The intro shares nothing with the core song. There's like a solid 4 or 5 minutes in here in the middle of the track that is incredibly cohesive. It's that the disco pop section. The rapped part at the end of that brought in some different instrumentation, some different rhythmic devices, but at least timbre-wise, it felt connected to the disco part. The intro is just so disconnected, being primarily acoustic instrumentation and borrowing heavily from Indian folk sounds in general. I did find that the melodies felt a bit more Western, but it was a neat little intersection, I believe, from traditional Western pop music and I should say Western pop music and traditional Indian folk music. But I did really enjoy all of the acoustic instrumentation throughout that and the timbres too. While I have heard plenty of music with instruments like the sitar and whatever that drum is that you can apply, I think you apply pressure to the drum head itself to change the pitch of it. I've heard plenty of music with that, but it's not something I listen to all the time. So to me, it's still a little fresh. I enjoy that. It's just so disconnected from everything else. We had this random romance era classical music for like 30 seconds, and then that took us into a pop track that persisted throughout until the end, where we got some progressive pop, maybe. It was still timbre wise connected to the disco section, but rhythmically kind of interesting. And then from here, we bring in the finale of this track, which is a heavily distorted saxophone and a moody sound in general, heavily electronic or electronically changed. And this felt totally out of place with everything else too. So we have the intro, we have what I feel is the core song, and then the outro. And the intro and outro really, they don't connect. None of this connects. I don't understand this. It's really wild too because I'm not a huge Gorillaz fan, but I've heard their hits, and y'all had me listen to Trash Island or Plastic Island or something a while back. And generally my idea of Gorillaz is that they're incredibly cohesive. They have an idea for a song and they execute that idea within the song. Something like this feels a bit outside of their wheelhouse, which is probably why it feels so disjointed. The separation could be a key element. Maybe that's something they want to instill in the listeners, this feeling of disconnect. But it could also be that that wasn't their intention, and just a lack of experience with a more progressive track like this led to kind of a choppy experience throughout, where maybe all of this is supposed to feel more cohesive. It doesn't. So that's the first thing that I really felt coming into this. It was a beautiful intro, and then we just landed somewhere else, and then the finale of the song lacks finale punch because it just doesn't connect to anything. I mean, it's almost like, I don't know, reading a book. You get to the halfway point and then you change books and go to the last chapter of the next book, and you're like, wow, this doesn't match the other one at all. No, why would you expect that? It's just a really bizarre way to wrap this track up, to jump to an entirely new sound, atmosphere, vibe, set of instruments, timbres, and everything for 30 seconds, 40 seconds for that ending. I don't know. Maybe there's more context to it. Let's talk about this track though. We'll go movement by movement. We'll look at the intro first. Gorgeous. I love this. This is absolutely wonderful. It has, and maybe a little bit of it is the animation style to the music video too. I wasn't paying a lot of attention to it. I was trying to take in all of the music, but it is on my screen. It's, I see it corner of my eye and stuff like that. And I probably will go back and watch it again, just focusing on the visuals this time, simply because what I did see was gorgeous. It reminds me of 80s or 90s Disney. Maybe at the peak of their, not the peak, definitely their more well-known 2D animation era though. And in fact, with the snake and the monkey that was in there too, and I think there was a lion or a tiger. Just generally, I get like Jungle Book vibes from this. So, I suppose that's in there too. Anyways, it's gorgeous animation and kind of bringing all this together. I had mentioned at the beginning of the track that it felt adventurous, but kind of safe. The danger is small, much like a nice children's film would have. When you walk into a forest, you have to have that adventurous vibe, but you can't have adventure without danger. So you need that exploration, but you also need the fact that this place is not totally safe. And that's usually what adventure, especially light adventure, feels like. And I think that they crafted that very well with a set of instruments we don't typically associate with that. Or at least, let me rephrase that, not to put words in people's mouths. I don't typically associate a lot of traditional Indian instruments in here. And usually when I hear music like this, it's Western instrumentation, it's an orchestra. And I thought that was pretty cool. Maybe this is where some of the mixed ideas come in too, despite the fact that we have traditional Indian instrumentation in here. The music doesn't always come off as that. We do have the microtonal movements between notes, some quarter tone movements in there, and we do have the frequent pitch dip. It's like pew, pew. You kind of come down, come back up. We heard that a lot across every instrument that played something melodic in here. I think it was overdone just a little bit, but it is a sound that I associate with Indian folk music. Maybe not quite, again, to this level. It was used quite a bit, but it's still in there. So I think this is a really cool merger of sounds where I can kind of point at specific elements of the melody, of the chord progression, of the timbres of these instruments, of the roles that these instruments are in, and say, well, this was definitely derived more from Indian folk music. This was derived more from Western classical music. And it's kind of neat to hear how they overlap and create something fresh and new from that. It isn't just smashing these two sounds together, having a string section with a sitar or something like that. It really does try to find a middle ground between these and play around with it. Like taking two pieces of Play-Doh, two different colors, and working them together. Sometimes places will bring a new color, and other places you get a bit of a marbling color to it. And I think that's a very cool way to kick this track off. And it does kind of lend itself well into that pure traditional romance sound that we had after this section. It's still a wild change in timbre, in mood. It comes across as veering into the world of whimsy. This was in the video where they were looking at the curtain with the symbol on it and the curtain opens or something. This was about that time. And it's like I can see where they basically took the classical elements in the intro and then just stripped everything out of it and went pure classical here. But the timbre shift and the genre shift even is kind of, I don't know, it doesn't click, it doesn't fit. I can see the threads, they're just not tied together very well. As if each of these pieces had a thread hanging off of them, and I could tell where, it was snipped, and maybe eventually they were supposed to be fused back together and they simply weren't. There's just not a lot to tie these together, despite, there is classical in both of them. Really bizarre jump. And then from here, though, we make another bizarre jump into synthy disco pop. Much like the intro, this is well done. It's bouncy, it's punchy, it's got energy to it. There's a lot of that turn of the century, I guess it'd be like 2010, yeah, more like 2010s sound with the, I don't know the name for this technique specifically, but where the synth gets cut out by the bass kick. There's a ducking going on here, but it's a ducking to zero. So you get a bass kick on the downbeat, and then the synth rises out of that. So you get a womp, 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 and it's this constant growing sound, and you don't ever really get like the attack from the synth. So that was definitely looking a bit into the past, but also this whole disco pop thing was really popular 6 to 10 years ago. I remember Dua Lipa had a disco pop album out, and I think there was another really big album that came out too. but this sound was all over the radio. So it's interesting that Gorillaz is borrowing this now, or adapting this now. It's a really well done sound, and it's kind of nice to return to it. I did enjoy this era of Western pop music, but it doesn't, again, it doesn't match anything. It just kind of comes out of nowhere. And is it a fine section in isolation? Absolutely. I just don't understand what it does with everything else in this track. The layering on it is nice. The production, as expected from Gorillaz, is fantastic. It feels great to be within. It is bouncy. It is fun. We've got the playfulness of the 3 vocalists in this section. The call and response and all of that, trading off, the backup vocals. There's lots of cool complexity elements going on with the vocal work on this. And all of it's very playful against the beat too. It's just fun. It's light. We went from adventure to quasi, what was that word I used? I don't remember. The classical bit though, whimsy, quasi whimsical. And now we're into a very dancey pop track. Very wild change of events here. But again, it's all well done. I can't really fault it for what it is. I just don't understand the larger picture. This ended in a rapped section, which again, I think this is the 4th vocalist that we've heard on the track so far, and I enjoy it. There's really good rhythmic playfulness. The rhyme scheme is interesting. I can't wait to get to the lyrics on that, just from what I heard. Like phonetically on the sound side of things, not knowing the words, but kind of latching on to the syllables being sung or rapped. Some really cool rhyme schemes going on there and interline rhyming. And it just has a really cool beat to it too. And this beat is 6/4. Well, sorry, 6 against 4. If you listen to the rapped part, it's really easy to count this in 6. The drum part is in 6 as well, but there's a synth just hammering home these quarter notes on 4, giving us a 4 against 6 or a 2 against 3 hemiola going on. And this is interesting because it creates a feeling of clashing cooperation. These two rhythmic devices are not working very well together. They line up on beats 1 and 4 of the 6/4 idea. So it's what, a third of the beats you actually get something that lines up on it. The rest of it is the syncopation against it, and not a symmetric syncopation either. It kind of comes in the middle of beats. So there is this clashing element, but it works really well together. The hemiola is, I mean, it's one of the few, maybe only polyrhythms that has a name to it. And part of that is because it pops up so commonly in music, but it pops up so commonly because it works. Ideas become tropes, become reused devices because they're effective at what they do. And the 3 against 2 just sounds great. And I love it in here. I'm a big fan of the hemiola. So we have this cooperative clashing, which is interesting because this song as a whole feels like cooperative clashing. None of it really works well together, but it's all done really well too. To wrap this up, we have 45 seconds max of dreary, low energy, synth-based atmosphere. We kind of ditched the percussive work of the previous section and the harmonic exploration of the first section and focus on something a bit more post-rocky, atmosphere and texture over everything else. It feels dark, it feels moody, it feels gloomy. The synth is massive. Then there's also a saxophone. I think there's a lot of distortion and effects put on it. At first, I didn't even know what the instrument was, but I think by the end of the song, an airiness started to come through that reminded me of woodwinds and a little bit of a brassiness, but I think some of that might be alluded to the compression that is applied to it as well. It can kind of give it a brassy sound too. I don't know. I could be off on this, it might not be a real instrument at all. Could be some guy on a keyboard. So I don't know, but we do have a melodic instrument here that is playing counterpoint to the vocal part, and it is adding to the moodiness by having these downtrodden, heavier melodies being presented. I mean, that's the track right there. What more do I say about this? I wish I understood it more. I mean, even coming from the concept of the theme of this week, which is genre combinations that are strange, aside from the intro, which Western classical and traditional Indian folk music combined is a pretty rare genre combo. Again, not just mixing parts of the two, but finding a way to mesh them together into something fresh, which honestly is kind of what I wanted for this week. I want to hear things smashed together and making something fresh, rather than there's two things I don't hear together simultaneously. The latter of that is absolutely fine. It certainly qualifies for the week, and it has introduced some interesting conversation this week as well. But I mean, the intro to this track is very cool. And I know it's harder to find stuff like this, but kind of making a fresh sound out of two other distinct sounds, that's awesome. But everything else in here is very straightforward. The disco pop track and the electronic post-rock kind of finale, a very textured, atmospheric approach to electronic music, which, you know, there's a lot of that out there too. Not all electronic music is dancey. It's not all four on the floor. I don't really see how this is unusual genre combinations, other than the fact that these three sections don't usually show up together because they are completely disparate. There's no way to tie all this together well. As I've mentioned too many times, I feel like I'm getting into the area of repeating myself and rambling. So let's hit some lyrics on this and see what's going on. All right. Some of my questions are answered here because Gorillaz does not have a track called The Mountain, The Moon Cave, and The Sad God. They have 3 tracks: The Mountain, The Moon Cave, The Sad God. They all come off of their 2026 album, The Mountain. We are looking at tracks 1, 2, and 15. From The Mountain, I believe this is the intro. While The Mountain does have lyrics to it, I don't think we get any of that, which is mostly just a repetition of the phrase, The Mountain. But we do get the instrumental part of that track. The majority of this song is The Moon Cave. And then the final drearier section to this song is possibly an instrumental part of The Sad God, although as far as I can tell from the lyrics, we really only have 2 lines from that. And what's interesting is that the 2 lines are accompanied by a secondary vocalist doing some stuff that isn't present in the music video rendition of this track. We only get the one vocalist's lines from this final section. That is after we get the chorus, though, which the chorus is also not a complete version of it, as it is missing some background vocals on it. This is really interesting. From a perspective, most music videos are just the music with a video, and this is not. While it does feature the first 2 tracks, which I'm sure do connect somehow, we are missing a big chunk of track 1, and it is a chunk that would fit between the instrumental part we got and presumably the beginning of track 2, but I'm not even sure that we heard the beginning of track 2. I have not listened to the studio versions of any of these tracks, or I should say the album versions. I actually don't know if any of the music has been changed or altered. I do know that some of the vocal work has been removed, so who knows what else has been changed for this music video purpose. What it seems like is that they have a larger visual element, which Gorillaz are definitely a visual band. After all, they are an animated band, so visuals are a pretty big part of that. But they had a visual story they wanted to tell, and they took bits and pieces of 3 of the tracks of their album to tell that story. That's pretty cool. It's fairly unique in the world of music. And I think it's pretty cool. It does make me wish I had heard these 3 tracks in their full versions. I found out that together they're about 13 minutes of music, and this music video, aside from the credits, was less than 8. So we're definitely missing quite a bit of music here. A third of it, actually, to be precise. But it is pretty cool what they decided to do. I think as a way of almost being a sampler of the album. I'm sure that as diverse as this is, the album is probably more diverse. Gorillaz loves to play with genre. But again, like I had said, I haven't really heard a lot of Gorillaz other than their big hits, primarily from the late 2000s, early 2010s, and a couple of single tracks that y'all have showed me over the years of doing this channel. I'm not really familiar with who Gorillaz are right now, and after listening to this, I think I have a pretty good idea. They're quite a bit more diverse than I expected, and they've grown a lot since the last time I've heard them. I am interested in this album more so than I've ever been in any Gorillaz album before. So, as a work of art, solid. The animation works well. The music tends to tie into the story elements, even if the song itself is very disconnected. I think as far as it being a bit of a soundtrack to the story of the animation, it works really well in that regard. But it also fits the other purpose of singles and particularly music videos, which is advertisement. To say, we have an album out and this is kind of what it sounds like, maybe you should check it out. And I think it succeeds in that realm as well. It is both art and the business side of music, which you kind of can't escape. And yeah, my opinion of this has grown quite a bit. And I'm very interested in checking out the rest of this album now. As for the lyrics, I am incredibly lost. And I think a lot of that is just due to the fact that Gorillaz has a lot of lore to them, since they are animated musicians and they have stories like this that are both, figurative, but also kind of literal too. The lyrics all tie into things as well, and I'm just a bit lost on all of that. I noticed that in a lot of the Genius annotations, it brings up this was sampled from a track from this album, or this is a reference to some lyrics from this other song. And I'm way over my head with this. The song is about going to a moon cave that, I don't know. There's a cave that they go to and some stuff happens there. It says you must wash all the perfume from your body while you're in the moon cave. And that saying goodbye is hard, but it's even harder if I don't know it's going to happen. So let me know it's going to happen, which kind of seems like the inverse. It's easier when things are shocking than if you have to prepare for it. The chorus talks about becoming things in the vast river of life, presumably, that you kind of swore that you never would, growing up to become someone you don't recognize anymore. The second verse talks about losing your voice and kind of becoming someone that no one recognizes anymore. So again, another layer of this visual disconnect between the personification of someone's identity and who they are. The bridge is a lot of repeated ideas. The final verse, which is the rapped part, it's disparate. It's interesting. In one part, a lot of it is self-hype. He says, I'm going to float like a butterfly. Give me any topic and I'm going to let it slide. He says, when I let the ideas float up high like a new hot topic, I can treat it like it's gossip. Basically saying, no matter what you want me to talk about, I'm going to sell it. I'm going to do it so well. I'm going to have a lot to say about it. Just saying, look, dude, I'm a really good wordsmith. And he does this for 6 lines or so. And then it goes on to kind of feel like it talks about the band in a nutshell. It says that we can float from topic to topic. Is this hip hop? Is it gothic? Can it fit in the corner pocket? Almost like saying, what genre is all of this? What are we talking about? What are we singing about? It's a lot. It's a lot of a lot. And we can always we can always have our finger on the pulse of things, which is really interesting. When I described a lot of this as referencing older trends in music, doesn't feel like they're too much on the pulse as behind the pulse, but still. And then it talks about the end of days kind of being like a movie, that people are like ghosts watching folks clocking in to the most popular optics. Kind of this idea of those who came before us, or maybe in a way those outside of the general way of existence, look in from the outside and see all of us locked into what's popular, not actually exploring anything anymore, but being told what to do, see, understand, what to think, what to listen to, what to watch. We're all just fine-tuned in on what's popular. It says we can spread it around from the small towns to the empires and it'll all fall down. And that's the end of that. Both the moon cave, but also the wrapped section. It feels very distant from the two people exploring the idea of identity and self-projection and how people perceive us and how that might not be how we perceive ourselves and how we can look in the mirror and perceive ourselves differently than who we are as well. A lot of concepts of a rebirth and shifting expectations in who we thought we would be, and then a track that says, hey, we're pretty good at this genre hopping, aren't we? It's kind of a weird mash. The final section of this track says, I gave you blue skies and sweet fallacy. I gave you poppies for malady. I gave you white cells that you weaponize, and I gave you garlands. You closed your eyes in paradise. I gave you my life in paradise. This doesn't make any sense to me against anything else, but not even within itself, but it's also just the end of the sad God. It is missing so many lyrics. And honestly, as it is further into this album, these lyrics don't really make a lot of sense to me. There's a lot of annotations, and they seem to rely on a lot of past information, both from Gorillaz' library, but also within this album, which is kind of becoming to come to a point where I visualize it's probably a concept album. So diving into track 15 and trying to figure out what's going on, it's not easy. But I definitely don't see how all of this lines up with the lyrics presented from Moon Cave either. And I'm trying to pair all this to the music video too, and that's not really making a lot of sense to me. I just feel like I'm out of my depth here. I can appreciate a lot of what's going on, and I am very interested in this album now, but I'm also just as confused about why all of this was put together. As I mentioned, the music's rather disparate, and the lyrics we get aren't necessarily working together to tell a cohesive idea either. These are my thoughts. Gorillaz, The Mountain, The Moon Cave, and The Sad God. What did you think of these tracks, this music video? Let me know. You have a different opinion than mine. You have things you want to correct me that I mentioned that I might have been wrong on, or things that you'd like to expand on what I said. You just want to add anything related to the conversation? Go ahead and do that. Head down into the comment section and type some stuff out. I'm interested in hearing what y'all have to say. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. Takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. That wraps it up for today, but I'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.